Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave podcast here at the Culture Wave Media Network, and we are back to discuss episode 5 of season 2 of HBO Max's Peacemaker. I'm going to be one of your hosts. My name is Darian Scalamoni. I am joined this week by Sean Villa.
What's up, Peacemaker fans?
And Vinny Albano.
Hello.
We have a good amount to talk about. This is like the lead into what we were just talking about before we started rolling, the big episodes that everybody's been speculating on because James Gunn had made, and I guess HBO in general, made the first 5 episodes available to a lot of press, but the final 3, all the press was like, why haven't you revealed that? And he's like, there's a lot of big things that happened in those last 3 episodes that have larger implications, which we can speculate on that at the end. But let's focus in on this episode as a whole, right?
Mm-hmm.
We start this episode off where we pick up right where episode 4 left off, where this meeting is being set in this, I believe it's called Freedom Park, with Argus, and Harcourt is trying to lure in Chris Smith, aka Peacemaker, and she's kind of, we find out, I don't think we found this out last episode, but she sends a text message to him basically being like with a code word, like, don't show up, and he still shows up in general. But what I love about the opening sequence for this in general is that I loved, and they talked about it a little bit in the making of episode, the staging is so important for the way that, or the blocking, I should say, for the way that they kind of navigate that whole scene. And it starts literally from the jump where they have the drone shot, kind of giving you the aerial view of all the things that are happening within the park and how Chris uses that to his advantage to like not be assassinated or taken out, I guess, essentially by the group of Argus agents. So for the opening sequence, how did you think that the episode kind of kicked off?
Yeah, I thought that was cool. I think that whenever a drone shot comes up, I'm usually like, oh, this is going to be some like unique direction, because not too many people do that kind of thing. And I agree with you. I like that you brought that up. The blocking is really cool. The extended sequence of like him just kind of getting to Harcourt, which could have been one shot, is made interesting through like the action that's kind of happening with the sniper, as you're saying, as him like kind of weaving in and out of extras. I love that kind of stuff. It reminds me of like old Call of Duty missions, and it's like, oh, cool, how tactical, whatever. So it was cool to watch. I also, before we get too far ahead, I do want to bring up the very opening scene, which is the funeral of Ricky Flag Jr. Is that this episode, or is that?
Oh, you're right.
Prior?
No, you're right. It is. Yeah, Rick Flag Jr.
So Rick Flag Jr.'s death is where we kind of open up on. I think that has some like pretty big implications about Harcourt, and I guess to kind of transition my thoughts into this park scene, I love that that's really still like the root of the scene. I think James Gunn as a writer is so good at like always maintaining the core of what a scene is about and never letting that kind of escape into, just like an action scene. The relationship between Harcourt and Chris, for me, is the best part of the season. I think, especially because there's 2 of her, and Chris is sort of jumping between like girl that loves me, girl that doesn't, and but he's still drawn to our Harcourt, obviously, and I love the relationship that they build with them, where it's like, I, as a viewer, genuinely don't know like what's going to happen. I don't know if she's going to betray everybody, if she's going to last second like turn and be good, if she's going to love Chris, if she's going to friend zone him but be on their team. It could go a million different ways, and that kind of like expectation being so loose for me is really, really cool. I think that just means that it's well written. The characters are really well written. The dialogue's good. Their tension and their chemistry too. The actors' chemistry, I think, is great. So yeah, I enjoyed the opening scene, and I love that core is carrying it.
Yeah, Vinny, what about you?
Yeah, I feel the same way. Honestly, I echo all the same sentiments that you said. It's, for me, I have to compliment the editor of this episode, because to make such a sequence, like not only the park sequence, but the sequence with Flag and Chris when Flag is just beating him.
Yeah.
It just works really well within the edit, and I have to compliment the editor for that, simply. Everything else, overall, with this episode, I enjoyed it, but I also felt like we were kind of stalling this episode. I'll get into that. Overall, the opening was great, though.
Yeah, James Gunn talked about, I forgot the name of the editor, but the editor on this episode in particular, and the opening sequence after the funeral where we're in the park, and he talked about how that was one of the hardest days to shoot because he was so meticulous about how he wanted everything to go and how it is this larger sequence, even though it's not 100% an action sequence. And I like how, despite the fact, like you're talking about, that it was tactical, there's also still moments of humor in the way he's handling it. Like the fact that like it starts with Chris hopping the fence and then he's like next to like a like bunch of puppies,
Right.
and he's like petting them. He's like, it's so nice to see you. Like in the middle of the fact that he's literally being like manhunted by tons of people and he's aware of it. So it's those moments of humor that I do love that Gunn is able to balance. And I think that he's better with physical comedy, honestly, than sometimes he even is with his dialogue.
I agree.
Because some of his dialogue, it gets, we talked about this a little before we started rolling too, it's like the overbearingness of like the same joke kind of being repeated and beaten to death.
Yep.
But his physical comedy, and I think it's why, like, Gunn has directed a lot of actors to do a lot of things that I feel like we haven't, like he's allowed actors to kind of explore different things. Like Chris Pratt is like a good example of somebody that like he was always known as like the supporting character, the big schlub on like Parks and Rec, and then he becomes Star-Lord and he's able to get the Indiana Jones out of Chris Pratt somewhat. I think that Cena may be the best actor in terms of his direction that he's ever worked with.
Yep.
And I think it's so interesting because Gunn is that type of director where he writes, and this actually came out, I think, this week. I don't know if you guys saw this, but originally Peacemaker was written for Dave Bautista, and Dave couldn't do it because there was a scheduling conflict, and he was like, yeah, he's like, and he literally was like, I like John Cena in Trainwreck, so I wanted to bring him in, and he had this imposing thing, and Cena's only in Trainwreck for like 15 minutes, but he is, in my opinion, maybe the best part of that movie, and there's nothing physical about that, but obviously he has this big physique, and he's a professional wrestler, and he's able to stretch the acting muscle more and more as he learns with this character, and he works with James Gunn.
Yep. You know, I think I like Dave Bautista, but if I'm trying to picture him doing the stuff that Cena's doing here, I don't think it could work. I think Cena was, obviously, we're very lucky to have him. I think, you know, he's probably just like a great dude. I don't know him personally, but he's like gives the most to charity and shit, you know, so he seems like a nice guy. And he's also, I think he's becoming like a really terrific actor in this part. You know, I don't know what his range really looks like, but I think for what they're giving him, he's hitting the comedic beats great, which was expected, but he's also hitting these like really high highs of just emotional moments, and you can kind of feel like the heartbreak. And again, this whole relationship with Harcourt that I'm so drawn to, I just really feel it from both of them. I think that Cena is sort of like a rare instance for me where the main character in a show is the one that I'm like so eager to get back to. You ever feel that way? Like, I feel like a lot of shows, the protagonist is usually like the driving guy, but they kind of make him the straight man so that you like, you know, it's easy to kind of relate to. I think it's really special when a show has a main character that always has the most interesting thing going on, and I think that's definitely Cena. What I want to talk about once we get a little deeper into the episode is that I think maybe because Peacemaker's plotline is so interesting to me, that I think we're losing some stuff with the side characters.
The 11th Street Kids.
Yeah, the 11th Street Kids, I think, and this supporting cast that's ever growing, right? I think everybody's good, except one, who I'll get into. But I'm worried that, like, that camaraderie that really drew me in those, like, first two episodes is kind of getting lost. And maybe that's the point, that the friend group's kind of falling apart. But I think of someone like Vigilante, who was like pretty much my favorite character in the first season, who really hasn't been given anything to do in this season. And I'm hoping that he gets a little bit more. But for the time being, I'm really impressed with Cena, and I love the direction that most of the characters are going. And I like him here in this episode, too.
I agree with you. And I don't want to touch too much on it because I know, Vinny, I want you to comment too. But with the 11th Street Kids in particular, I do think that I agree with you wholeheartedly. I feel that the way that this episode ends, with getting all those characters essentially together through Harcourt, I do think that they're going to be thrust into this big action thing, and that's why they get Adebayo and Vigilante together to kind of be the ones to now try to figure out how they're going to get back to this other Earth, which a lot of people are speculating that is Earth X, but we don't know that for sure. But a lot of people think that. So I think we're going to see some of that play out, but I also think part of that driving thing is that how we intro in this season, showing us where Chris ultimately wants to end up, where he wants to be a hero more than anything. You know, like he still has this code of wanting to be good, and he wants to feel, not, I guess it's partly inflating his ego, but it's more so that he wants
peace.
Literally does. But at the same time, because of all the tragedy and trauma he's gone through with his life, he just wants to feel it on the most epic and biggest scale. And I think that he feels that within this Earth X. So I agree, but I agree in terms of the 11th Street Kids that they're also not as interesting. Like they're not written as interestingly in this season
Yeah.
because so much of it I feel like is revolving around.
I think
Peacemaker.
Harcourt's become more interesting.
Yes.
But yeah, I think in terms of like Economos, Adebayo, Adebayo had the Waller's daughter thing going in season 1. She doesn't really have too much of a gimmick here. Which I think is kind of what you were saying, Vinny, where it's like it's sort of just filler that we're clearly building to something, but it's sort of the same problem that I think I was having with Squid Games to a much lesser extent here, where it seems like plot A is just doing so much work that there's so much we got to go through, but plot B only has about half as much content, but it just gets stretched out a little bit to meet plot A, because plot A can't jump too far ahead or it won't make sense when they come together, right? And I think hopefully here we're at that point where they're going to converge, but I guess we'll have to say, Vinny, what do you think?
Yeah, for me, overall, it feels like I enjoy the direction they're going with these characters, specifically Chris, obviously. However, this episode, by the end of it, didn't really take me in a new direction compared to season 1, where every episode in season 1 unfolded the story to another layer. It was always revealing new information and leading us on to something new. But we don't really get anything new from these characters that we already haven't learned in these past 3 episodes prior to this. So that's how I felt kind of stalling, like filler. Maybe I'm just a hater. I don't know. I've been hated recently, but not that this episode wasn't bad, because it wasn't bad. It was very enjoyable. It's just, yeah, I just wanted to feel like by the end of this, we had a new direction or something. Yeah, but obviously now the door is closed behind him, so whatever's going to go on in these next few episodes within, what may it be, Earth 2 or X, whatever, will be revealed, and hopefully it's exciting. I thought this episode was going to be more of a bombshell than it was.
Yeah. I think they have, you kind of touched upon this. They have a lot of heavy lifting to do in 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And you had said, I think before we started recording, I don't think we have this on camera, but you asked her, like, is this the shortest episode of the season? And it does kind of fly by where and I was saying, I think it's because there's so many action sequences within obviously the park sequence is an action sequence within itself. The scene in the interrogation room with Rick Flag and Chris was all over Twitter this week. I'm not sure if you guys saw that, but like, it's just that the choreography is like brutal, dude. Like the knee across the neck is like an insane shot.
The knee to the face where he's like up on the wall on his head, just back is, I mean, it's pretty.
It's brutal, but like that's so much of what it was thrusting this forward. And I think it's funny, and it's kind of a little typical James Gunn, that the character that we get the most from in this episode that's not Chris is Eagly, which is like kind of, again, it's very James Gunn. It's like it's a animal character, and it's a character that people thought was going to die, and it was going to be another like tragic character that was related to Chris in some way that was going to die, and now it's like a lot of people are speculating that it means that there's this bigger meaning for Chris too, and like what Chris means overall for the DCU. What did you think about the way that they handled the Eagly stuff over the last couple episodes and the death of Michael Rooker's character?
Yeah, so I think with Eagly, it's sort of an example of just what I'm worried about with these next 3 episodes, because I think it's an interesting seed that if this is it, I don't know why it's here.
Yeah.
But there's 3 episodes left, so I can't make any kind of like grand observation about where this is going to go. Eagly being the prime eagle is either A, just kind of like a funny aside, in which I think they probably gave it a little too much screen time. They brought Michael Rooker in and kind of like wasted him on this stupid plot. If it doesn't go anywhere, I'll be a little upset about that. But I think it's similar to a lot of things in this episode where we have, like this blossoming romance between Flag and Bordeaux. Is that her name? Right?
Yes.
It looks like there's like a hint of a flirtatious thing going on there. If that leads to nothing, it'll be upsetting. But I trust Gunn enough as a writer that I think all of these things are going to have some kind of bigger payoff. And the Eagly thing, I think, is the most interesting one. A, because it gets like the biggest kind of spectacle in this episode. But B, because it theoretically, this does kind of conclude the like joke part of it. But I don't know if it's ever going to be anything more than a joke. Like, is Eagly being a eagle that can control 100 eagles going to be relevant to the plot? You know, because now he's in this other dimension. Can he control the eagles there? What if this dimension has billions of eagles? You know, that could be pretty cool. Whatever. So yeah, I think it's funny for what it is. It like adds some like interesting, memorable shit to the episode. But overall, I mean, we'll see where it goes. I'm open to it being something cooler, and if it's not, then like, all right, I guess it's a shrug from.
Yeah, I think the flag thing is interesting because, and I know, in Creature Commandos, correct me if I'm wrong, but he literally he sleeps with another metahuman, right?
Rick Flag?
Yes.
He's
The princess, right?
the princess.
But is the princess a metahuman, technically?
I'm trying to remember.
Vinny watched the whole series, by the way, and I didn't. So
Some sort of power she had.
okay, so
Well, Bordeaux's a cyborg.
yeah,
That's new info.
and her being a cyborg means she's technically in the DCU rules, she's a metahuman, so, which means she's a powerful being. She's like,
I guess.
yes. So I don't know if that's going to be something that keeps going along, that also it can correlate to kind of his son in a way, because they even touch upon that in the flashback episode where they talk about how Rick was dating Enchantress. So like that could be another thing that's like kind of adding along to his character, that he's this government being that obviously is working against metahumans. We see it in Superman. We see it with Chris. And I don't know if actually Chris isn't a metahuman technically, right? I don't think he is. He's just an expert mark.
You know,
This is the semantics.
the whole show.
This is the semantics.
Is he
But
like super strong, or is he just a guy?
no, I think he's just like a strong soldier that is also an expert marksman. I haven't seen the Suicide Squad in a long time.
Yeah, me neither.
Like I think since it first came out. So, but I'm almost positive he's not a metahuman.
okay.
So
If it doesn't, maybe it'll make a difference, because it does seem like they're kind of building towards like an X-Men sort of thing, where it's like metahumans are like, they have like a stigma against them,
yeah,
right? We saw that with Luther in Superman. But yeah, I guess it's not terribly important for the moment.
yeah. But I do, even the thing, I guess, kind of adding into lumping in the Eagly thing, the fact that Eagly, like, we don't know the origin of Eagly. We don't know anything with how he got connected with Chris. We don't understand, and he is obviously a very, that's probably the closest relationship he has with anybody.
And it's a show original character.
Yes. So it's interesting with that being at the tail end where, and I can understand your, I guess, hesitation or understanding where it could be just kind of carrying on the joke, but I don't know if that's necessarily the case. And I feel like part of something that we might get revealed is that, because, I mean, again, it's just, I don't understand how Chris could walk out of something that happened with Rick like that if he doesn't have some sort of something that we're unaware of. Like, he gets, again, he gets kneed in the neck and jaw, and he walks out, and he's pretty, like, I mean, he's obviously gets the shit kicked out of him.
Yeah.
But he would be more injured.
Oh, you're right. And he's like jumping off balconies in season 1.
Yeah.
He probably does have a little something going on. But I mean, you could just assume like, damn, he's John Cena. The guy's ripped.
What?
You know?
That's
could just kind of like expand.
That is true too.
I've been looking at it on like ironically sort of as a John Wick situation, where it's like, yeah, he's just a badass, like whatever. That's the canon reason that he can do this, is he's cool. But if they introduce like some kind of mystical element to him that, like, you know, he's blessed by the Prime Eagle or whatever, sure, yeah, I don't care. It fits the show.
Yeah. So, Vinny, what do you think about, I guess, the Eagly connection and even the Rick Flag and Bordeaux romance angle?
It's hard to comment because I feel the same way. We still have 3 episodes left. I hope they do something with Eagly. It's so weird how they present it, because with Michael Rooker's character, he's kind of a joke of a character, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why this kind of leads me to believe that this was all a subplot joke that went too far and we spent too much time on, and it was just kind of a waste of time. But I just hope that's not the case. I hope that the Prime Eagle thing does actually play a part. Hard to say right now. I will say it leads us to believe that it is a joke of a subplot because of Rooker as a character is a joke. So they could have presented it better, I believe. With the Flag romance, curious, you know, he gets around. You know, I saw Creature Commandos. He's kind of a thought, you know.
Like father, like son.
Yeah, so we'll see, you know. And Bordeaux, I'm curious what cyborg explanation in the DCU will entail, because they're doing Teen Titans, like what's the extent of, because we have Cyborg in the Teen Titans, so what's the extent of the cybernetics in
DCU.
Yeah.
They're doing a Teen Titans movie.
Yes, same screenwriter that wrote Supergirl.
Okay, cool.
Anna Nagara.
I like this.
Yeah, we've been talking about that for a while. That's probably my most anticipated DC.
I think that's what's cool about Peacemaker, is that Peacemaker as a character in the Suicide Squad was sort of a gimmick. He's like a fun little side character, whatever. I think James Gunn saw something with him in John Cena's performance or whatever it may be. And then season 1 of the show, I think it kind of maintained that similar quality for me, where it's like, it's fun, it's doing something like a little cooler than you'd think, because it's a show, it has to have like character arcs and shit, but generally speaking, it's still just kind of like, yeah, it's Peacemaker, like whatever. It's just like, it's the funny superhero show. And now I think like, I think like this plot line actually like matters. Like I think this season of Peacemaker is like essential viewing for the DCU.
Yeah.
And I think that it's cool that like something as weird and like avant-garde as this. This is what's so great about having James Gunn be the head of DC right now, is that he's made again another family of nobodies into like a really interesting group of people to watch and follow that are essential to this grand universe with actual like iconic characters, right? So I'm really curious to see where 6, 7, and 8 are gonna go, just based upon the fact that this is a DCU thing. Because we had the little tease with Green Lantern and Hawkgirl in episode 1 that was kind of just tying it in like, hey, everybody, we're in the DCU now. Like, This is officially like canon. But for the rest of the season, other than like the little tie to just like characters from other things, we haven't had like any kind of like DCU, like, you get what I mean? Like big DCU progression.
Well,
so I want to see if these next 3 things are going to shoot us in a direction where it's like, oh, this is going to be like, our Infinity Stone moment where we're getting a tease at like what's going to come. Like, are we going to start to see this early, or is this literally just still going to be like Peacemaker, which I'm okay with.
Yeah.
I'm fine if it does do that, but I am curious to see where that.
I do think we are going to start laying the groundwork for it. And Vinny, I'm curious on your thoughts too. But like, I love how you brought up, because James has talked about this, where he literally was just like, no pun intended, but he was like a hired gun initially for the Suicide Squad. He's talked about this on podcasts and things too, where he was brought in, and I think it was maybe Walter Hamada, or maybe it was Zaslav, I don't remember, but they were basically like, we want you to do Superman. And he's like, fuck no. And they were like, well, what do you want to do? And he's like, I'd really love to do Suicide Squad. He's like, but I know that David Ayer has that or whatever. And they're like, no, we want to kind of continue with a new story. And if that's what you want to do, we trust you as a filmmaker to do that. And he's talked about, like you talked about in the first season, all that really was to continue on the Suicide Squad side of what the DC was, because we went from that to this, and obviously Viola Davis's Amanda Waller, who is in the Suicide Squad, was going to be the continuation, and they announced that Waller series a long time ago. I do think we're getting Amanda Waller in these last 3 episodes. I think it's like we have to. I mean, they're like, she's been mentioned multiple times, and she's Adebayo's mom, and she is one of these like big corporate overlords of the DCU, and it's fucking Viola Davis. So whenever they can get her on, I feel like they're going to. But I do think that so much, like you're talking about, it's that continuation aspect of it. It's that we see Chris is in, though it's for a quick second, he's in Superman. Like, there is a scene where you see him on a talk show, and he's talking about the ramifications and just how he has a dislike of Superman. And we go from that to, like you talked about, the intro, and they retcon the end of season 1 to include the DCU heroes, which is also like, that's really putting you in the scope of like, now we're in the DCU. Like, this is going to feel different, and it is going to be different. And I think we're going to see a lot more than I think people are anticipating. Like, we've speculated on Creature Commandos. Like I said, I think Amanda Waller is going to show up. I think we're going to get Luther too.
That would be awesome.
And because
Nicholas Hoult is the man.
He's awesome. And I do think that now, just the way that they're strategic, Warner Brothers and the DCU and James Gunn and Peter Safran, and the way they announce certain things, like they waited to announce Man of Tomorrow until this series was like 3 weeks in. So like, we know that this is the pseudo follow-up to Superman, and that it's going to lead also directly into Man of Tomorrow, is what James Gunn is talking about.
Okay.
So there has to be some sort of where we're going to go from there. But Vinny, what do you think about the overarching DCU ramifications for what we can see?
It's hard to say, because I think the appeal of DCU from Superman forward and with Gunn's approach, from what I've gathered, was that instead of being the grounded, epic building saga of Marvel, we would have just stories. So there's a part of me, because we all grew up on Marvel and we're so like, it changed our brain chemistry to think, okay, superhero shared universe, they have to build towards something. But I think the appeal to this new universe is that we should actually keep it more focused on just individual stories. Like, have like the DC universe is more of like great myths rather than how Marvel's approach of the Marvel comic book characters are grounded realism, right? So I kind of like having. That's really all I have to say, honestly. I honestly prefer if they keep it more focused and more singular, from character to character. Obviously, you have crossover, but not. I don't think we need to build to like any dark side or anything big anytime soon.
Yeah, that's the rumor too.
Yeah,
Side.
I'm not sure if we're like setting the stage for like big DCU villain now.
Yeah.
I think that would probably be shooting your load a little early. So yeah, we're gonna use that.
Yeah, we could use that.
Yeah. But I think that I am intrigued to see like how the universe is going to build, just because that we're like at the ground floor of it. And this is the first time that we've been at the ground floor of like a cinematic universe since the MCU that I like actually give a shit about, which is crazy, because 5 years ago I would have been like, I'm never going to care about a DC universe, and I do. But again, like I don't want this to be the like me praising James Gunn show. I just think this is a guy that I respect a lot. As I think he's a great director, but I think he's a much better writer personally, because I have never seen him do anything where I think the heart has been lost and isn't the key focus of what it is. I think he's a very personal, intimate director when it comes to character work. And I think what's so fascinating about this for me is that how does someone that is such a personal, intimate writer like that create an extended universe? Is it going to be like you're talking about, Vinny, where it's really everything's kind of coexisting, there's occasional crossover, but everything really stays kind of small scale in that regard? Or are we going to build into like a broader like MCU-ish thing just with his flair, and like what's that going to look like? And are we going to get like tonal whiplash? We have a Clayface movie coming out. What's so interesting about this is that like Superman is sort of I guess it's not technically the start of the DCU, but it's like what most people I would imagine are going to think of the start, because it's the Suicide Squad. But let's just say it's Superman. And Superman is a movie for anybody, really. There's some like crude humor, but a kid can go and see that. A kid can't watch Peacemaker.
Yeah.
So if Peacemaker is essential to the DCU, is that going to be a problem? What's the tone of this universe going to look like? How is, it's the same kind of concern that I've been having with like, oh, Deadpool is going to be in Doomsday. How? What's this movie going to be rated?
Yeah.
How are you going to make this movie without like essentially castrating Deadpool? So it's like we're going to need. I'm just so fascinated on how this is going to be done, and I'm optimistic about it because I trust Gunn as a creative. But I think that these next 3 episodes for me are going to kind of, I think, show us a direction, like where this is kind of headed. If we get a lot of DCU stuff, I think I'm going to kind of expect one thing. And if it stays very focused and linear, I think I'm going to agree with you that it's probably just going to stay that way. So I'm curious. I think that's what I'm most excited about.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I was this excited to see kind of the breadcrumbs on like where we're going next.
Yeah.
And it is one of those, it reminds me of how I felt with old MCU stuff where I'm like, I really don't know where they're going to go. And that's exciting to me because even what you just talked about, like you get a glimpse of it in the premiere episode with Guy Gardner and with Hawkgirl, where it's like, okay, you can understand that these characters can exist in a rated R world and they could also exist in PG-13 Superman world.
Right.
But there's not enough there for you to really bite on and chew and kind of see really what they're going for. So
right.
I'm intrigued, but is there anything else that we haven't touched on in this episode or things we want to speculate before next week's episode? Vinny, anything from you?
Not really. Unfortunately, this episode is very short, so we don't really get much. And again, this was kind of my big problem with the episode, is that there's not much to speculate here because it's kind of just the same thing, but now closing the door, literally and metaphorically, right? So, do you want to talk about Judo Master?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't like Judo Master. I think the bit was over last season, and he's sticking around, and he's the only character that managed to follow Chris into this alternate universe. So he'd better do something important or die immediately, because if he hits the stupid middle ground where he's just sort of there again, it's going to bother me, dude. I'm sick of this guy. No offense to the actor or anything. I just think the character is just kind of dumb. Like, I don't care.
No, I agree, actually. I think the joke ended a season ago, and now we're just hanging on for him.
It's like, oh, he's eating Cheetos every scene. That's the joke, is he's eating Cheetos, and he's tiny. Like, okay.
No, I agree. He should get killed.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. I don't have much to speculate on or I agree, though. I think Judo Master is probably one of the worst characters this season.
I think the biggest thing in this episode is that Harcourt definitively tells Chris no. She does not want to be with him. It meant nothing. There's nothing between them. And that's what motivates Chris to really, like, just take the leap and go into this other world. Because he loves her. And he can't have her here.
Do you think she means that?
I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah, I don't think she does.
But wouldn't it be cool if she did? That would be pretty...
It'd be interesting.
Wouldn't it be cool if everyone in the other universe was evil except for Harcourt, and our Harcourt is the one that sucks? But I guess that kind of ruined the point. I don't know. We'll see. 3 episodes left. Tune back in.
Yeah. No, I love this conversation. There's a lot that... I'm excited to come back the next few weeks and talk about this and see where we're going to be at. I don't know. Are you going to be here for the next one?
So next one I won't be. Sorry, audience. But the next, the final
next 2,
I'll be here.
Yeah, and we're hoping we can get Mikey on if he can catch up. I don't even think he started this season yet, which I told him, I was like, you should get on it. It's good.
Yeah, definitely.
Hopefully we can have him on for the finale. But
for as much like little complaints as we're saying, I mean, at least for me, and you guys can agree or disagree, I am liking this season a lot more than season 1. I think it's significantly better. There's like little things that I don't care for, but ultimately, like, I'm really enjoying the show. I wait eagerly for the week to week.
I think for me, I like them equally as of right now because they're so different. Like, they're totally the same, but they're entirely different. And I do think part of that ideology is what you were talking about, though, is because James Gunn, when he was writing season 1, was in an entirely different mindset than he is now as like the architect of the DCU. So I'm enjoying it. I'm looking forward to seeing what we get in the last 3 episodes, but definitely let us know in the comments, what did you guys think about episode 5, season 2 of Peacemaker? Let your theories fly in the comments. We'd love to talk to you guys about it, speculate with you guys. Give this video a like if you guys can, and subscribe to us here at the Culture Wave Media Network. You guys can check out all the other videos we have on the channel. We're covering, we just have the Demon Slayer movie review up. We're about to start covering Gen V, if that's not up at this point. Don just wrapped Vinny, and Mark just finished that speculation. We got a lot of movie reviews upcoming. I'm going to be doing my TIFF recap episode. We got Big Bold Beautiful Journey, One Battle After Another, Him, a lot of other things upcoming for you guys. So check all that stuff out if you guys can. And follow us on social media. All that stuff is below me in the video, and it's also in our YouTube description. Just signing off, I'm Darian Scalamoni.
Sean Villa.
And I'm Vinny Albano.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.